This is a podcast which does not shy away from difficult and vulnerable topics. The content is of an adult nature and we do swear at times.
Welcome to the Autistic Licence podcast. I'm Siana and I'm in Carrickfergus in Northern Ireland.
I'm Leo in London.
We invite you to listen in on our conversations as we experiment with unmasking in an autistic space. We talk about what it means to discover we're autistic as adults, especially with established careers as therapists. We want people to know that autistic therapists exist and to broaden the conversation about neurodiversity. You're so welcome to join us, whoever you are and wherever in the world you are. We hope you'll find something of interest and connection here.
Let's start with food, because this is, one of the regular occasions where we get to be together and our experiences of food very much align, in fact. And that's highlighted when we're together.
Definitely.
Yes, and kind of, sharing space and eating together or not. And so I can start with some backstory. Yeah. So the absolute backstory is that we've known each other for, it's like a year and a half-ish, I'm guessing. I will look up the exact date that we...
No, I think you're right. Well, I think it was sometime during the summer of 2022. So we're probably coming up on 2 years.
And that was through the Facebook group for autistic counsellors and psychotherapists.
No, well, that was before that. We formed a supervision group in that yes. summer. Yeah.
Oh, is that that's what you're dating for? That's right, because I would have joined the group at the beginning of that year.
That was kind of personal contact was from...
So we have known each other, let's say, 18 months, something like that. And although we met briefly when you came to England on one day, just to kind of say hi.
Well, I came to England. This is me being autistic. I came to England for more than one day. I came to your vicinity of London for one day.
Yes.
I came to England for a few weeks. And then I came there for one day. Last summer.
That's right.
Yes.
So we met then, but we actually started spending regularish time together not very long ago. And that's really the point at which the subject of food becomes relevant for us.
Well, I would like to put more into the backstory of when you're kind of starting to get to know people. It usually does come up like, what are you having for dinner? Or
this is what I was going on,
I'm cooking now, or I need to go and make dinner. And like before it's even got anything to do with eating together, you tend to have those conversations.
That's right.
And those conversations always bring up so much anxiety for me. Yes. Because I don't want to answer them because of a fear of judgment of what I'm eating. Yes. Or I don't want to be told enthusiastically what the other person's eating because I won't be able to share their enthusiasm, or I might have to fake it or try and move the conversation on or make a joke about it. So I think it probably started before that, although it might not have been conscious.
It was conscious. That is what I was going on to say, that in the time leading up, where our communication was Zoom and then and texting mostly, and then. But yes, you're right. It's it's almost like kind of what do you do for a living when you meet somebody. It's just one of those standard questions you ask. What's the weather like? Have you had dinner? Or what's your favourite food? Or anything like that. These are all kind of social binders. Yeah. Between people who don't know each other that well. And I learned quite quickly, I think, that was not a question that you were comfortable with at all, especially, what you're having for dinner, which is, again, just such a common social question. And you would talk about demand avoidance kicking in and not wanting to talk about it. And then you did say that there was some element of potential shame there that you didn't want to kind of step toward. And so I didn't ask anymore, and that's totally okay. It's a boundary and a reasonable one with good reasons behind it. And then we actually spent some time together.
Yeah.
And we were going to be required to eat. And so we talked about going shopping, going to a nearby big Tesco's to essentially do a food shop for the 3 or 4 days we were spending together. And there was a bit of a debate about whether we would go individually, whether only one of us would go. And I didn't realise, I don't think, until the actual moment sitting in the car park of the Tesco, still having not made that decision about whether to go in separately or together, that the barrier for you was me seeing what you would choose. Yeah. And that was uncomfortable for you. And we both, but particularly you, I would say, decided to be brave and go in together.
I think at that point...
Did it feel brave?
At that point, it felt like it just had to be kind of faced. I guess that by then I had been open and authentic enough with you that you knew that there were issues around it for me. So it wasn't that I had kind of bluffed or lied my way in advance of it. You know, at first maybe I had avoided it, and then maybe I'd have said, oh, just not interesting to me, can we talk about something else? Or actually, I really don't want to tell you what I'm eating. Or like there had been a lead up so that you were very sensitive to it, so that in the end it was not as big a deal as it could have been. But was still a vulnerable experience, even though I knew that you were also autistic and had idiosyncratic eating habits. But you had still always been open about telling me what you were eating. You didn't seem to have the same shame about it. No,
which is not universal, because I'm thinking through this as you're talking about it. That I did, probably because you were uncomfortable about it, that was a kind of, in a perverse way, a reassurance from me. You know, that you were not going to find my choices odd or that it would be embarrassing for me.
Yeah.
And it's probably worth talking a little bit broadly for a moment about autistic people and some of the things that can happen around food more commonly that we already knew we had in common because we are autistic. And these are phrases like same foods and safe foods.
Yeah, good. Yeah.
Where, you know, my breakfast is very, very, very same for 7 years.
Yeah. 3
Jacob's cream crackers, crunchy peanut butter, salt and pepper, and black coffee. And that is a routine. And preparing it is a ritual, which I thoroughly enjoy. Something that I do have to park when I'm with you because you have a deadly nut allergy. So I can't do that.
You can't have peanut butter in the house.
See, now this is where the attunement comes in. Is not so we both were aware that because we're autistic, there are idiosyncrasies around food. And the reason that I had no shame in talking to you about it, and I probably would fib a bit to other people about how I eat, and kind of emphasize the variety and the healthy choices, which are there, they are real, but I would emphasize them for sure. And I probably wouldn't talk about, you know, the idiosyncrasies. But what I did know is that you had some. I just didn't know what they were. Yes. And that was enough for me to be completely comfortable talking about my own.
Yes.
What neither of us could have known is that they're very, very similar. Yeah. And this is what we discovered in a magical moment that will stay with me for the rest of my life, of the mundanity of going into a Tesco's for a medium-sized food shop and kind of just picking out the same things. It was probably a relief. It wasn't a relief for me. It was just a delight and a joy because I wasn't anxious about it. I imagine it might have been a bit of a relief for you.
I think so. But there was some same stuff that was really lovely, like things like breakfast. Because so my standard breakfast for many years, I don't know when it changed, is that I'll eat banana and toast.
Now, if any of my family are listening to this episode, their ears will all have pricked up at that point, because banana on toast is my family's traditional, standard breakfast, particularly my dad's, from, earliest times. I don't know if it predates me, if it was a childhood thing for him. I wonder, I'll ask. But banana on toast, I've never come across anybody else who will regularly have, or those very few people I've met who that is a thing for will mush the banana up. Yeah, exactly. Whereas you do it exactly as I do it.
Well, I cut my banana different to yours.
I do it more of an angle because, here we go. Here's an autism for you, everybody. Yeah. I cut mine at quite a sharp angle so that the slices are longer and I have to make less cuts. It's more efficient. You will cut at right angles and have circular banana pieces.
That's right. And have more.
Do you think?
I think I have more. I think if you counted how many I put on my...
Oh, you'll have more slices?
I'll have more slices.
Oh, yes, sorry, I thought you meant more banana.
Which means that then no, not more banana, of course, not more banana in the overall picture. But then that means that if I want to have small bites or I don't have to bite right the way through the banana, I can always get the whole into the mouth, into my mouth.
That's incredibly attractive. So there is a real deal to be done there where many more cuts, it's more labour intensive, but you can have smaller bites. I like that a lot. That makes lots of sense to me.
But if you can have small bites, but then you have to bite through a piece of banana,
I know exactly
as opposed
what you mean.
to only biting the toast and the
That's
banana.
Exactly what I'm picturing as you say it.
Yes.
Wonderful. You may have just changed my life in a subtle way forever.
You're welcome.
So there we go. There is that's just a coincidence that's not to do with autism. That's to do with a very my family background versus something of your idiosyncrasies around food. But that's a very unexpected match. But again, some of the choice, when we do eat together, we do, generally speaking, eat the same thing. Not always, but very often there are enough things.
There's enough things, probably. But we've also got very used to, we can kind of predict each other's reactions to things because there's a lot of consistency in terms of what we will eat and will not eat. And so it doesn't have to be all the same. It just has to be sort of known and predictable.
That's it.
And I think that's it. It's bringing in the acceptance, and the acceptance being there. That means that then I don't feel like I'm putting somebody out by eating according to my taste. And I don't think that I've ever felt that before. I've always been aware that while somebody might be accepting of it, it's still going to sort of put them out because they would prefer to have more adventurous things and for us both to have the adventurous things together. That's or the range or let's go shopping together and let's cook something really nice that we're both going to love. And that's just not anything that we would do. But the breakfast thing as well is so helpful because I don't then feel the sort of guilt that I might feel. Of course, I'm not going to make any compromises on my allergy, and most people understand that if you've got a nut allergy, you don't have nut products in the house, and because of cross-contamination and things like that. So it's not that I wouldn't obviously need you to respect that, but I guess I would have felt sad if it was a case that was one of your really favourite things and there was nothing that could replace it. But actually, I could see that it could be replaced with the banana on toast and not be like a big loss.
Far from it. It's rejuvenated. The only other standard breakfast I've ever had in my life. So it's a direct replacement. It's absolutely perfect. And we couldn't have predicted that. Part of the shame or what you felt as potential shame around your choices before kind of disclosing to me was quite specific. And I hadn't framed my own eating habits in that way until we matched up, which was that they're very childlike. They seem to be quite infantile. That's why you might have felt that you were going to be judged or shamed, to be, what on earth are you eating that for? That's kids' food. That kind of thing. And I hadn't really thought that when I do fall into my patterns, and it is periodic for me, of, safe foods, that they are pizza, particular sweet things. They're not sophisticated,
No.
grown-up adult foods, although I have broader choices available to me. I also have different restrictions on me because of, as a bariatric patient, then I have particular needs in terms of protein and thinking about what I have room for and what I don't have room for.
Yeah.
So there's a whole different side to that as well. But kind of, again, some idiosyncrasies really help with that because I can do absolutes. I can do repetition.
Yeah.
You know, and if it's turned out that the best thing for me to eat would be some chicken and some prepared vegetables of some kind, I could eat that over and over and over and over, and it's a pleasure to me.
Yeah.
So they do kind of intersect in a way, my nutritional needs medically and my autistic repetitious foods. But they are when they kick in, really, they're not sophisticated. And I would probably try to disguise that around other people a little bit.
And you have the advantage, though, where you do like things that are seen to be adult and kind of maybe luxury food or something.
Like you'll eat sushi. But it's another safe food, and that is one of the big repetitious things, but it happens to be sushi. And that's a grown-up
you have
experience.
Things like that, which
spicy things.
I don't have anything like that in my diet. I never got beyond what most 5-year-olds will eat happily.
And that's what's lovely, is even though I have variances, I don't need them.
No.
So it doesn't matter how much time I have to spend eating with you. I don't miss any.
Oh my goodness, how much time I have to spend eating with you.
How much time we share together where eating is part of our daily routine. It's not problematic at all to think, I wish I could have sushi tonight, because I don't. I would like to have the ham and sweet corn pizza again, because we both really enjoy it.
Yeah. No, I really get that. But yes, my choices, really, what I just said there, I think is really, really accurate. Everything that I eat could be enjoyed by a preschooler. There's nothing in it that is for an adult palate. But I do have really, really, really strong reactions to other foods. And also, I have wondered about my allergy and how that goes together with that, because I would never have any desire to try foods that would actually be unsafe, like literally unsafe.
You don't have to fight your allergy.
I don't have to fight it, because I don't want any of those oils or any of those sauces or anything that there's no likelihood of cross-contamination. Even if I went to a very safe restaurant, the kind of things that I would order, they would be very able to prepare that in a safe environment, because I'm not asking them for any sauces or to use anything or to move anything, because it's so plain and specific that the chances are so minuscule that there would be any contamination anyway. And I think that's a real advantage, because I can well imagine that many people with a nut allergy feel so deprived at not being able to do that, or of the risks that they then have to maybe live with, which as an autistic person as well, I'm not very good at living with any kind of risk. But I just mean that it all goes together, because my palate has no desire. And if there was ever anything in my food that didn't taste exactly as it should taste, I'd be like, something in that, something's not meant to be in that. And it could be like just because there's a little bit of pepper that's more concentrated, and pepper is, I don't like pepper, but say I have actually consented to eat a pre-packaged plain ham and mayonnaise sandwich from Tesco that I've read the ingredients and there's supposed to be nothing in it, but the mayo has a bit of black pepper in it, and then I taste that. It's allowed to be there, but I will know that I have got a concentrated bit, and my tongue will go, unsafe, what's going on here? What is that? And then work out what that is. And so I can really detect anything like that, or a little bit of mustard that sometimes is in the ingredient list. I'm not implying that anything is in the food that shouldn't be, but it's not something I would choose to have put there. And so then I'll detect it when it comes along. And sometimes in a certain part of the sandwich, the way it's been spread, there might be a particular concentration of mustard. And mustard is not a key ingredient. Mustard is not something I would seek, but I will allow it to be an ingredient in mayo that's spread over the sandwich. But then do you know what I'm saying? Like, I'll be able to detect it and be like, oh, what is that? Is it allowed? Is it allowed to be there? And I certainly would not want it to be there. I will pick all of that up and will have a fear response. Not that I think... It's not a fear response, like, connected to my allergy in those situations. Like, oh shit, there's something there, I'm going to die.
But there's a fear response just to the unexpected.
Yes, just to the unexpected.
That's all. Yeah,
to the
exactly.
unexpected.
And that could happen in any aspect of life.
But
we pick up something. Yes, and there is something that's enhanced for you, which I think you spoke about last time.
Yeah.
About choosing to put something in your body. That's dialed up further than another.
Yes.
Because we were making the comparison, weren't we, of kind of sound being
that's right.
an overstimulation, but at least that's external. You haven't literally internalized it. And so the fear response is greater because you are ingesting something.
Because I'm ingesting, and because I've got a history of anaphylaxis and of my throat closing over, that must be part of this.
Oh, well, that's trauma.
That must be part of the... I'm very careful. But I guess I was very careful with what I ate. I suppose what I'm saying is the autism came first, because I was always so-called fussy and really careful with what I would eat and what I wanted to put in anyway. But then that's probably heightened. Probably part of the fear is if I'm not careful, this could cause a reaction.
Wow, so I've just been hit by a very specific memory that's very similar to what you were just describing, but without that kind of traumatic experience driving it. Yeah, I mean, as soon as you said the word fussy, then that was absolutely a label attached to me as an eater, as a child, that I'm very fussy, and that I had very, not literally vanilla, although I love vanilla actually, vanilla tastes, very, very conservative tastes in food. And I didn't want anything fancy. And I've forgotten about this. I had standard meals then that were so specific. My favourite dinner as a child was a frankfurter and mashed potato and peas. And the mashed potato and peas could be mixed together. Oh. Maybe even with a little bit of tomato ketchup. But that was
they were mixed?
I would mix them. I would mix them to a very consistent ratio as well.
Wow.
I'd forgotten about this. But the other thing... Now my mouth is watering, thinking about that. How interesting.
Mine is not watering.
I could always tell I could already tell when I was describing it, this is not going to be okay for you. But the fussy thing as well, and I remember this quite specifically. I can picture scrambled eggs on toast, but it will have happened with any meal. And I remember a tiny black speck in the egg, which probably would have been... some pepper from somewhere else.
Yes.
I was terrified. And what's that?
Yeah.
I was convinced that if I ate it, that was going to poison me somehow, or some kind of really primal fear kicked in over something so incredibly minuscule, unexpected, and to be told, stop making such a fuss, it's nothing.
Yes.
And that would happen pretty regularly, that I would be obviously hyper-vigilantly scanning my plate for anything that shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
And getting really, really worried about it.
I would do that too. I would have done that as a child. Probably still do that. But yeah, absolutely. A little speck of something that shouldn't be there. Yeah.
So... another autism from my childhood.
That's definitely an autism. Yeah. So the peas, and the mashed potato, did you mix them up so that, like, did you mash the peas?
No. They must be whole.
The peas must be
easy.
But how could you cope with putting in your mouth a different?
I know, and I've just realised that is a really weird thing, or that you will find that very weird. That what I've done there. Is to mix textures.
Yeah.
Right. And that was the point. Now I'm now looking at it with a diagnosed autistic adult's brain analysing this. And that was the point, that mashed potato on its own is I think there are two elements to this. It's too mushy.
Yes.
It's too slimy mushy. Put peas in it. That actually firms it up a little bit, gives it some bite, gives it a texture see, I would see that as a texture, although I can see now, of course, that's two very different textures, and that's quite odd for an autistic person to want. But in my mind, I was making a new texture, which was much better than just mashed potato. Thing one. Thing two is this would be hand mashed potato, which I will make myself now because I will batch cook. I haven't done it for a long time, but I'll batch cook shepherd's pies and freeze them. But my mashing needs to be really thorough because that is something you could get a lump. And that's okay. I don't mind a lump of potato per se, but not when it's unexpected. And maybe I was guarding against the occasional inevitable lump in my mashed potato
by putting
lumps in.
Okay. You might have been putting lumps in yourself. I can see that. But there would have been
control of the unpredictable.
Yeah, but there would have been a lot of lumps in that, frequent lumps.
Yes, predictable ones that I really enjoy. I love peas, I still do. Still love peas. They have to be firm, not mushy. I could have peas. I could have peas in anything savoury, and that's great. And happily for me, they're high protein, and I need protein particularly. But yes, it's never occurred to me until our chat today that that's a very odd thing for an autistic person to do, is to deliberately mix textures.
Yeah, I thought you might have mashed them, and that would have made them similar.
Yeah,
that might have been what you were doing.
And that's the opposite of what I was trying to achieve there.
What you were trying to achieve. Yeah.
I would totally still do that now.
Yeah.
Not in front of you.
I mean, I guess I could probably. I mean, those things on a plate are not going to gross me out. You know,
so that's the other thing you mentioned last
Frankfurter,
time.
Mashed potato, none of that stuff is going to gross me out on a plate. The things that are going to gross me out on a plate are the things that I actually can't recognise. So it actually stresses me out whenever I see things all mixed together. So like Ricky will get he will create himself. About the
Chinese.
Or he will, he will get takeaways, not just Chinese, Indian, whatever. And like he'll just open it up and there'll be so much in it all bunged together, and half the time what he puts in his mouth, it's not like he's consciously thinking each time I'm getting a bit of this, a bit of this, a bit of this, and there'll be all different meats all mixed together, all covered in sauce, but all these vegetables, and you just put it in your mouth and you don't really know what's going in your mouth. And I can't understand that, and all the different textures and the different flavours and like all that, but even just looking at that in front of him, like, is very hard for me. And when we were living together in the early days, he would cook things like that. Now, not expecting me to eat them, but he would cook them. And I would find it really, really hard to have the smells and be surrounded by all of that. And this makes me really sad, because I think that he stopped doing things like that because it just was an incompatibility. But since we've been separated, he's refinding all that. And even when we were together, he would have got takeouts, so he would have still been able to enjoy things like that. And, would have had takeouts sometimes with work friends and stuff outside of the house. And it was never like totally talked about, like, he's compromising this for me. But I did always know that if he had have been with somebody who would have enjoyed that kind of thing, he could have had a lot more pleasure and a lot more adventure going out places to explore all this. The lovely thing is that our daughter, who is now 15, has discovered that she likes all of these things. So she was always very, very careful what she put in her mouth, and very restricted in her safe foods, always, and was always allowed to be like that, because we accepted that's what she needed and was catered to in terms of what she liked, what she would eat. Ricky would batch cook that for her and did that for years, and he batch cooks for both me and Lana still. Another thing that it'd be good to talk about, because I think sometimes there's so much shame attached to things like that. So as you would say, I'll bookmark that and come back. But the point that I'm talking about now is that she seemed to be that way. However, her tastes did always include spicy things. She just liked particular ones that always had to be the same.
Yes.
But they did definitely include a much wider, sharper palate than mine did. My safe foods, they taste enough. They taste enough. They taste what I need food to taste like. I can't have taste that makes my mouth hot or that has all of those spicy kind of things. So to me, they have taste. They have the same taste, and that's what I like. Lana's taste would have always been same, like they would have been the same food for her, but they would have had much more of an edge to them. And her snacks would be much more like crisps and spice and hot and things like that, whereas mine would not be. I'm a sweetie kind of a person. Again, a child, whereas her tastes are much more like she was eating kind of adult style, spicy crisps from she was a very young child. And I suppose some of the sauces and the types of dishes that she liked were not traditional children's kind of ones either. And so now she has started to go out with her friends, and they are introducing her to restaurants, places to eat that I would never have taken her because they would not be attractive to me or to her, because we like to go to the same places. She wanted her nuggets from McDonald's for many years, and that was what she wanted. She didn't want to go anywhere else. She then started to be able to go out with her friends. Now, the interesting thing is, I think she's still like ordering the same thing when she goes back to the places, but she has found her thing in these more adult restaurants that I feel like I could never go to, because in these places I would never find my thing. There's just nothing that's plain enough for me to find. Whereas she's got the edge because she can still be samey, and she's also having to choose to take the risks to find her thing. But she can still be samey, but go to the sophisticated adult kind of places. Sure. And so now the lovely thing for Ricky is that he can take her out to these places and he gets to experiment and try lots of different things and have someone who's loving it with him. His daughter, he gets to do daddy-daughter dates. What father doesn't like to do daddy-daughter dates? Like, people love if their teenage daughter wants to go out to these places. So it's really lovely for both of them that she gets to go and get bought these things, and that he gets to go because he doesn't have anyone to, like, he can do the takeout, but maybe just doesn't have anybody to go and sit in and have the whole smells and the whole atmosphere, which would actually just be so unattractive to me. Like, I just wouldn't even want to go and sit with them. But I feel like then he's not missing out and she's not missing out, and it's all very complimentary.
This is brand new for Lana.
Yeah.
And that's reminded me that I had an absolute pivotal moment of being that fussy, big air quotes, child who was anxious about food and could only eat these very basic, plain, repetitive foods. And I suppose when my ADHD kicked into that part of my brain, was exactly that age. I was 15. And it was when I had my first girlfriend, girlfriend that I went out with for, like a year and a half. And her family would eat interesting food. And there were different cultural influences in that family. And I suddenly, and it really was sudden, was totally okay with going around and having dinner at their house and trying these new things for the first time, all kinds of things.
Oh, wow.
But even wary of telling you what some of them were, because I think you would wince so hard.
Probably.
But it really was a switch. That was a switch. And then since then, I've tried most things. I probably have tried most things. And out of that, I've been able to exercise lots of choice and settle on my more limited menu. But it's still fairly broad. I will still be interested to try things. For me, The blocks are very particular textures, and that texture I will describe as gloop. An egg has to be very well done.
Yeah.
No globby bits in an egg.
Yes.
Semolina, tapioca, rice pudding, anything of that ilk, porridge, which I used to love as a child, by the way, weirdly, can fuck right off.
Yes.
That is my absolute block. So that covers everything. But I don't know, I'm trying to think if I've ever actually been yet in a situation in the last 2 to 3 years where that choice has come up. Do I disclose being autistic here as a reason why I need to eat or not eat in a particular way? Because it would come up in restaurants. I don't go to so many, I used to a lot. I don't these days, and it's partly because of appetite and capacity, and it's partly because owning 2 dogs really restricts where you can eat, so kind of eating out tends to be in country pubs and stuff, and that happens. And it's not the food related and eating related stuff that I think would impact me in public or socially. It's the environment part. So I've always known that as soon as I've finished eating in a restaurant, I don't want to be in the restaurant anymore. Okay. I do not like that bit afterwards. I don't mind being there socially. I have friends who I have for decades met at a particular restaurant semi-regularly, and we would stay there late into the night as well. We know the owner, and it's a place we've been to for years, and that's totally fine, generally speaking. But in every other context, I love the idea, and I know there are some places in the world where this is the norm, where it's not a cafeteria, it's a restaurant, but you pay first. Okay. You order and you pay. Okay. And then you're served your meal, and when it's done, you can just leave. Yeah. The sitting about in a noisy environment, or I'm probably a bit too full. Yes. And I'm definitely too hot. That's the main thing, actually. I'll be too hot. Yeah. I just want to get out. And that is where I think now I might say, we can go to this restaurant, blah, blah, blah. But because I'm autistic, I have certain, kind of environmental intolerances. And one of those is going to be that I'll want to leave as soon as the meal is over. Even if it's just to go and sit in the car and wait for everyone else for half an hour, that's fine. I've done that. In fact, I have done that.
Have you? Yeah, that's interesting.
The food part of it's fine for me because I'm only going to get what I want, and I'm not frightened of what the food might do to me. Yeah,
I've never had that feeling of, can we just leave now? So I don't know if I almost have a relief when the food's over, because then it's predictable, because then everybody just has their tea and coffee or something, and that's really, everybody's doing the same thing. And then, I mean, obviously I still have it's usually too hot and it's usually too crowded and too noisy, but that's kind of just the same as it might be if you went out for a drink or, somewhere else. I think if I could just remove the food part, and I think I just don't do it really. It's very, very, very rare I will go to a restaurant, but I will kind of go with the discomfort of going out for a drink because of the payoffs of being with certain people, that's the only context I can be with them in, or it's like a special occasion to be with them in, but would really want to avoid the food part. Or if I could possibly swing it, that I could go along when everybody's finished eating. Enjoy it. And I have done that before.
Yes, I've done that.
Then, of course, I'm doing the after bit where you're allowed to join the table and order a drink. But the older that I get, the less pressure there is even to do anything like that.
Thank you for listening to the Autistic License podcast. You can connect with us via Instagram, Facebook at autisticlicense.com, or by email at autisticlicense@gmail.com. And we spell license the British way, LICENCE. We also have a thriving Facebook community. Search for Autistic License Siana and Leo, or click on the link in the show notes.